Now, how many of you have heard of Scotcoin? It's a type of cryptocurrency, which is a digital form of cash that can be exchanged online. The market for this is huge, but it's still not really mainstream, is it, with the general public? So how does it work? Why should people use it? Why shouldn't you use it? I spoke to Temple Melville, and he actually owns the Scotcoin project.
Scotcoin is a digital currency, and Scotcoin was started in 2013 by a chap called Derek Nisbet. Derek felt that it was required for potential of Scottish independence that there should be some kind of currency that was available to people in Scotland, and he started Scotcoin. And unfortunately, Derek was only a one-man band, the referendum was lost, and he kind of lost interest. And so in early 2015, myself and my business partner David Lowe bought the IP and started to try and sort things out.
What's the IP?
The IP is the intellectual property, which includes various domain names, various websites, various other things in that connection. So we have the right to give people the right to use the term Scotcoin.
Who's using it just now?
At the moment, if you mean who's using the IP, the answer is not very many. The object of the exercise for the last couple of years has been to expand the holders of Scotcoin. It's a two-edged weapon. We have to have more people using it in order to have more people able to use it. And that is an ongoing thing that happens every day, every week. But the focus has been on changing the websites and the blockchains upon which Scotcoin is based. If you go back a couple of years, everyone was saying about, the great thing about cryptocurrencies was that nobody knew, who owned them, who did this, who did that. And basically speaking, we took the position that no government, no regulator anywhere was going to allow that to continue. And that has proven the case, actually. It's more and more that's being regulated now, and a good thing too. So we went on the basis that we would have to be KYC, which is Know Your Customer, and AML, anti-money laundering, compliant, and that's what we're doing.
Okay, so who at the moment is spending Scotcoins?
Well, you can go to the Arlington Bar and buy beer, for example, if you want to.
But that's because you used to own the Arlington Bar, or you still do.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But there are other things. For example, we have people who are prepared to accept Scotcoin for services. For example, if you want a website built, if you want to use some hosting and all the rest of it, that can all be paid for in Scotcoin. We took a decision a couple of years ago to come off an exchange which was called Bitrex. And the reason for that was the speculation was ridiculous. It was going up and down by huge amounts every day, and that is absolutely no use at all for a coin to be used. You can't pay £5 for a cup of coffee and then pay £10 to actually transact. So we came off that, and this is in fact one of the things that will happen when we have our new blockchain up and running in some months' time. It will be in fact on exchanges again, and it will be tradable and usable for other things.
I remember trying to get my head around it, a few years ago, and it was interesting because blockchain gives you this, in some ways, security, because everyone's part of the one great big monitoring system that you can check exactly, can't you? Everyone can check everyone else's Bitcoin or Scotcoin in theory and the validity of it, because there's a permanent record of transactions. But that's on the one hand. But the other hand, this bloke, Jordan Belfort, who wrote Wolf on Wall Street, who said it was the biggest scam ever. Maybe because he didn't understand it, I don't know. But where are we with this? Because on the one hand, some people will tell you can buy any manner of drugs or guns if you want them using cryptocurrency. But on the other hand, it's monitorable. It should be totally transparent. It should be ultimately completely trustworthy.
Yes, I think there's two or three different things you've touched on there. It gives you a little bit of history, in fact. The original cryptocurrency was actually set up in Switzerland in the 1930s, a thing called VIR, W-I-R. And VIR exists to this day. It has probably 500,000 people in Switzerland that use it regularly. It has probably 70,000 businesses that use it regularly. It transacts probably about $1 billion Swiss francs a year in VIR, and it's very successful. And therefore, that, of course, is transparent because everybody knows who has it and so on. If we go back to the point you made about buying guns and drugs and so on, that was an early use of Bitcoin in particular through the dark web and one thing and another. Now, the American Department of Justice has very successfully stopped most of that, or practically all of it. Believe it or not, it is in fact the biggest holder of Bitcoins in the world because it got all the Bitcoin that had been used in all these transactions. But the point you make about confirming the transactions is very valid. The individuals, it's no longer individuals, it's what they call mining farms.
Yeah.
And what they do is there is no such thing as a Bitcoin. You can't see it, you can't touch it. What you do have is a string of transactions. Those transactions have to be confirmed, and there's various different ways, but Bitcoin in particular is done on what's called proof of work, which is a very algorithmic and energy-consuming system. But what it does do is it gives you absolute certainty that that transaction or that string of code has happened. The beauty about it is that you have it's called a blockchain because you have a block. The block has data in it. Once that block has filled up with data, there's a kind of halt and you can't put any more in. And it then creates what's called a hash. The hash is a little tiny piece of information which basically compresses everything. And it is the seed for the next block. So each block is in a chain of blocks, and that's why it's called a blockchain, obviously. But it is true that, in fact, the transactions have to be agreed between more than 50% of the people who are involved in confirming the transaction, and that's how it works.
So how many people have Scotcoin? And what's the future of Scotcoin?
Well, in round terms, there's about 3,500. We are, in fact, the oldest of what are called country currencies. You have Iceland, you have various other places, the Irish coin and so on, Catalonia coin, but we are, in fact, the oldest. Once we're on our new blockchain, we will have many more opportunities to work with other people. We are busy talking to Women's Coin, who have, obviously, women as their target audience. We intend to use Scotcoin as a force for good within Scotland. We want to be in the charity sector and helping people with that. We're already joined with one or two charities in Scotland. I should mention Just Eat charity, which is based in Paisley, which is, I think, brilliant what they've done and are doing, and we're helping them as much as we can.
So are you doing this partly then to help the independence cause because you believe that it would be one way of saying, well, Scotland could have its own currency. Look, there already is this currency and you wouldn't need the pound, etc. Or you could run it alongside the pound. But fundamentally, you're saying this is a standalone currency. We're part of it. This helps independence. And after independence, let's say, you could use this currency to trade anywhere in the world, but fundamentally it would be a Scottish currency.
Again, I think there's a couple of things there. The first point is I'm a believer of the fact that everybody in Scotland should be better off than they are. If we can achieve that, if we can help the poorest in society, that's great. I'd never believed that Scotcoin, or even in fact any digital currency, would be the only coin in, or the only monetary value in a country. I've always believed there would be a two-track. There will be a use for cryptocurrencies and digital currencies. There is always going to be a use for fiat currencies. I personally...
What's a fiat currency?
Oh, fiat currency. Sorry, fiat currency is pounds, dollars, euros,
okay.
Japanese yen, whatever.
You'd run two currencies no matter what happens.
Yes.
So briefly then, and lastly, what's the future of Scotcoin? You want to bring this to people's attention. You probably want to sell a few. I don't know how it works. You want to make some money because that's what we're all, that's life. Well, what's the future of Scotcoin?
I think the first thing to say is that the entire cost of Scotcoin has so far been funded by donations, either of coin or of money, by both David and myself and one or two other people. It's true we sell coin. We sell coin on a daily basis, hopefully, and that is used to further what we're doing. I personally believe that once we have our new blockchain, which will be hopefully not too long now, although I always say to people it's a very difficult, long-winded IT situation. Large-scale IT projects take time, and they are, they get knocked off course quite frequently. But I believe that we have a good future, both in terms of actually using Scotcoin within Scotland and using it for specific things. One thing I would say about it, and there's two big pluses in terms of cryptocurrencies. The first is you can target them. So just for example, supposing you said to me, I want to make sure that I'm going to give money to a charity which will only use that particular money to do water in Africa. You can, if you like, put a little thing into the coin and say it can only be used to do that specific thing. It could be for other things. It could only, for example, give food, for example. And there are issues, but you have to go through those. So that's the first point. The second point is cryptocurrencies are absolutely fantastic for transferring value. If you wanted to send £1 million to Africa from Scotland, it would probably cost you between £20,000 and £30,000. You can do it with cryptocurrencies for like 50p. Which gives you quite a bit of an advantage here and there. And I mean, this again, this is why the banks in general seem to be very against it, although I notice there's one or two now of busy starting their own using cryptocurrency to transfer value across continents. And that's wise, because it costs so little to do. It's a really good thing.
Temple Melville, who owns Scot